What if the universe is in a constant state of sending you feedback? Welcome to There Will Be Signs, a podcast that celebrates the stories, synchronicities, and strange nudges that remind us there's more to life than what we see. Here we'll talk to deeply intuitive guests and offer practical ways to connect to the magic, whimsy, and unseen helpers that exist around you every single day, because you are supported, dear listener. It may not always feel that way, but there will be signs. Hey, Amanda, how's it going?
Hi, Killian.
It's so nice to see you again.
You as well.
I'm wondering, now that this is our second episode, I've been thinking about this recently where, we're starting something new. It's going to go out into the world. And oftentimes when I have released things in the world, I've thought about there's always this voice in the back of your head that's like, oh, what are people going to think about this? Even though for me, this podcast, and I hope for you too, it's more about these conversations. They just feel fun. I'm just so glad to be here and do this and learn a little bit along the way. And then I'm thinking, is there anyone that I hope is not going to listen to this in my sphere? Do you know that feeling like when you release a story or you write something and it feels personal a little bit? And you're like, oh, I don't know if I want that person listening. Do you have any of those people?
Specific person? Yeah, of course. You're I edit things in my head, or I try to. My mom, before I moved to California, was like, think before you speak sometimes. And then that went out the window. But I try to keep that in mind. And because you're like, oh, I don't want that story to come off the wrong way. You know, I love that person, but they don't need to have all the information. Maybe me just admitting to that is a problem. So in my head. But no, I totally understand.
Yeah, it's a normal thing. I was thinking about that because this shows a side of me that not everybody maybe know. I mean, I assume everyone in my world knows that I'm interested in a little bit of woo and a little spirituality and but how deep do people really know that I'll go?
I mean, if they know you, they'll love you. And that's all as part of the package.
Sure,
and that's great.
Sure.
I think it's wonderful. I don't want anybody to criticize me ever. So that's fun. Whether they know me or don't know me. This is a big step for me because I did a video a million years ago for a company that I worked for, and I got ripped to shreds by random people on YouTube because I said a word wrong.
Rude.
I said pierogies instead of pierogi, and in Poland, pierogi is plural, and it was a slip.
Ooh.
And everyone's like, she's not authentic. What does she know? It made me scared to put myself out in the on the internets at all ever again because I hate getting criticized.
It is tricky. Whenever you put yourself out there, you're putting yourself out in front of folks who are some are going to love it and some are not, and that's okay. And then folks who don't love it don't always keep it to themselves. And, that's part of the discourse, right?
Well, we said in the first episode, be nice. Try to be nice. If you have nothing nice to say, just turn us off.
Right. But the other thing, too, is I feel like some people might listen and be like, wow, some of these concepts are really,
out there.
And I don't really think they are. I feel like they feel really normal and common sensey to me.
And grounded to me.
And grounded. Yeah. I think the more we talk to the guests that we have on the show, and we have so many wonderful guests line up, we'll really see that through line, that a lot of people who are operating in this space of signs and synchronicities are so grounded. Of course, there's always going to be some who are maybe not so grounded, right? But that's everywhere. You see that everywhere. You see that in all fields. There's always the outliers who are not really using their knowledge in the best ways, maybe.
You know what I love? That we get the opportunity to do what I always want to do but cannot pay for. We do different readings, tarot, psychic readings, mediums throughout the year. And I'm always like, oh my God, tell me your story. And I never could do that because they'll be like, cool, I have a schedule.
Right.
This is a job for me. And I have a life too, because people don't always want to talk about their work.
Yep.
And they want to do other things, or they don't have just the bandwidth to keep talking about, this skill or gift. And we have that opportunity, and truly a little blessing and luck and fortune to be able to talk to them. And this is like something I've always wanted to know. I'd be like, tell me more about you and everything that like evolves around you or surrounds you. And we get that chance to hear about something, not just being like, tell me about me. To hear their story is just so cool to me.
That is such a great point. Like when we spoke with Jessica last week and she told us about the rain that wiped out her tarot deck cards on the windowsill, that's a very personal detail about her path and how the universe was guiding her. And that is just, I agree with you. That is such a cool opportunity that we have, that we get to kind of dig into these folks' histories.
I still think about her sea salt story.
Yes.
Which I was thinking about, like
olfactory senses, right?
Yeah,
the scent. Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. So we today are going to speak with Tracy Fance, who is based in the UK. I'll read her bio just to introduce her. She's been a psychic medium for almost 20 years, helping people to discover their natural psychic and intuitive abilities so they can access their full potential. She does a lot. She's very talented. She offers psychic or mediumship readings, spiritual and psychic development, and spiritual coaching. And then she uses tools like NLP, Akashic Records, coaching, and hypnotherapy, which is super holistic.
Yeah.
It feels like it's everything across the board. So her purpose is to help people find healing for the mind, body, soul, so they can remove the blocks that are preventing them from living the life they want to live. She's known for being down to earth, straight talking, not too woo-woo, and is incredibly empathic. Well, with that said, without further ado, let's talk to Tracy. Let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Hello, Tracy. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So tell us, where are you calling in from? Because I know it's not in the US.
No, it's not. I'm in a little tiny place called Herne Bay, and it's just outside of London. And we're on the coast of Kent. And we are renowned for our oysters that come from the next town along. So if you've heard of Whitstable oysters, that's where we are.
That's where you are. I love it. So you're right on the water.
Yeah.
That must be lovely.
It is. It's beautiful.
I personally love that you refer to yourself as psychic, because I feel like a lot of people have moved away from that word and they're using, intuitive, clairvoyant, etc. And I think it's partly because psychic just holds so much like cultural weight, but I love that you're still claiming it. And so what does that mean to you? Like, how would you describe psychic ability?
Okay. Wow, that's a deep one. So I initially
starting off light.
Yeah. It's going to get easier. For me, I really honestly believe that everybody is psychic. It's not an optional extra that some souls chose when they reincarnated and some chose not to have. Okay. So for me, being psychic is just that I'm very tuned in to the world around me. Now, that does not mean that I'm talking to you, downloading all your personal history, or that I can suddenly spout off what's going to happen over the next year for you, because that's A, not how it works, and B, that would be very, very bad form. I always say it's like going through someone's knicker drawer without their permission. It's like, no. I will be honest, when I was a kid and I was like desperate to be psychic, and I didn't know that everybody was, I honestly truly thought that unless I could shake someone's hand and know everything about them or see a vision, I just was not psychic in any shape or form. And I don't even know where I got those thoughts from, but in my head, I had nothing psychic going on in me whatsoever. So the reality and the perception were totally, totally different.
And that actually, I had that on my list of questions for you, is like, how old were you when you realized that you had psychic gifts? So how did that happen for you?
With retrospect, forever, because I had lots of weird things happen when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And one of them was a visit from the tooth fairy. Only it wasn't. It was sleep paralysis and a spirit visitation. But my 4-year-old self just couldn't process what was happening. And after a few weird things like that, I just put a lid on it and then spent the rest of my life being desperate to be psychic. So in my 20s, I found out that I was psychic, and then I did something with it, which is why some of the stuff that we were chatting about earlier is just so spot on. And so I've always been psychic, but I just didn't figure it out until my 20s. And I work a lot with people who are incredibly intuitive and psychic, but the same thing. They just honestly didn't think they were, because they were looking for completely the wrong thing. So it's only with the power of hindsight that I can actually see all of that. But when it was happening, I totally was oblivious to it all.
So can you walk us through what happened when you were 4 with that tooth fairy story? Like, what was that feeling? What was the sleep paralysis? And what do you think the visitation actually was?
Okay. So I remember lying in bed, and I had my back to my bedroom door, and I'd lost a tooth, and it was under my pillow waiting for the tooth fairy to come and leave me some money for it. And I woke up and I just couldn't move a thing. I don't even think I could move my eyelids. And so I just lay there petrified, and I could feel something was in the room. And so my 4-year-old self, went for the easy option. It's the tooth fairy. And I'd love to have been able to roll over and see what the hell was there. But I just honestly couldn't move a thing. And then suddenly the sleep paralysis went, and I was okay, but the energy had gone. And so I never got to see it. And since then, I have found out that when the soul comes back into the body, when it's been off traveling on the astral planes, sleep paralysis is actually when the soul hasn't fully come back into the body. And so it's not fully functional. It's like they're not all blended. So it's like that feeling when you wake up and you're not fully awake and someone's trying to have a conversation and your brain just hasn't caught up, but it's the spiritual equivalent. I've often wondered what that entity or that energy was. And it's most likely it was one of my guides. And I think at that point, I still had all my grandparents. Yeah, I think I did. So I don't think it would have been one of them, but it could have easily been a great grandparent who I didn't meet on the earth plane. It feels to me like it was benevolent, and it feels like it was there standing guard, if you like.
Well, like when you mentioned the soul leaving the body to go into the astral plane and then coming back in, I had this thought of like, oh, could you have felt yourself? Like the soul part that left. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You hear about people who are having an out of body experience. So the soul is standing here looking at what's going on there. But I don't have any images or any other memory of me looking at me. So it really doesn't feel like it would have been that.
And did you have a light bulb moment when in your 20s that you were like, oh, wait, I am psychic?
Not really. I sat in a development circle where you learn how you work. Like, do I see? Do I hear? Do I feel? Can I do mediumship? And you just keep practicing all the different skills. And I was doing it and I was giving messages and stuff, but it didn't feel like really profound and major. And of course, there's always that one person in the development circle who's going, well, I just had a chat with my father and my guide was there and this dolphin came along and da 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 da. And then I'm going, yeah, I got pink. You know? So I'm looking at them going, oh my God, why am I wasting my time doing this? Because I'm not getting what they're getting. And then I taught myself the tarot because my financial services business had died in the recession. And I'd got a job on the telephone lines doing readings. And let me tell you, that is hard work. And I got the job and then they sacked me because my readings weren't consistent. And I went and taught myself the tarot. And I came back. And suddenly the consistency was there because for me, the tarot unlocks the psychic energy and the information. So I don't read the tarot in as much as this card will always mean this. It's like when they're laid out, they tell me a story and then it's like blah, 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 blah. So really, for me, I think that it really all came together when I started doing this for a living. And I was like, oh my God, blow me down, I'm psychic. And that was the epiphany, which sounds really bizarre. I know, when I look back at it, I'm just,
No.
oh God, my poor guides, I think they're in therapy.
I think all of our guides are in therapy.
I can just see them standing there going, for the love of God, when is she going to get this?
Oh yeah, I have that feeling sometimes too.
It's so true. And then how often do you feel like you're tapping into your abilities? Like before coming on this show, for example, do you tap into that of when you're making any decision of like, okay, what's going to come of this? Because I know for me, I love tarot, and I always pull a card when I'm trying to make a decision about anything.
Yep.
Is that part of your practice too?
Yeah, I mostly just go with my intuition. I sometimes pull a card for myself, but I often don't, if I'm honest. For me, it's just how it feels. So I've had people ask me to come on their podcast, and I've listened to the podcast, and it's just like, no. Even if everything lines up and everything looks wonderful, and I could imagine that I'd be a great guest for them and that their show is a great fit, if there's just that, I don't think so feeling, then I won't do it. And it could be just all sorts of different things. It doesn't have to be big stuff.
Does it show up differently every time, or it sounds like it's like a physical sensation? Or yeah, how does that show up?
It's a bit of everything. So I'm just trying to reconstruct it in my brain.
Tell us about your innermost feelings in detail when it comes to anxiety or positive direction. Woo, Killian!
Well,
I kind of always feel like it's like this energy that starts low down, like in my stomach, and it spirals up. And so that's kind of a yes for me. And if I get a no, it's like I get resistance. I feel like I'm being pushed away from it. If I were to ask myself a physiological question and ask myself for a physical response, for a yes, I normally get like a kadunk feeling in my stomach. And for a no, there is like nothing going on at all. I'm like, okay, that's a no, don't do it.
wow.
So it kind of comes to me in various different ways because we all have different senses. So I'm sure you guys have heard all about the clairs. The clairs is the collective name that I use for the clairvoyance, the clairaudience, the clairsentience. Okay. And so for every human sense that we have a psychic or intuitive equivalent. And it can be objective, which is outside of us, or subjective, which is inside of us. So my clairvoyance is a subjective thing because I see here. I don't see like I'm seeing people sat there having a coffee with me. Okay. The same with my clairaudience. I'm very clairaudient. And it kind of comes in my right ear and it's like a ticker tape going through my forehead and coming out the other ear. And it sort of sounds like me, but it's not the, what shall I have for dinner? It's just different enough. And when I found out that I was clairaudient, that was a massive game changer for me. And a lot of my intuition comes to me clairvoyantly and clairaudiently. Okay. And so once we know how our information is being communicated to us, it makes it a lot easier. And for the most part, people, it's not what they expect it to be, and they don't know what they're looking for. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you're not going to find it. So that can be a huge step forwards with your development and your intuition, just literally knowing how that information is coming to you.
Yeah, it's like learning how to study.
Yeah.
It's like learning how, some people are visual, some people are audio, some people are this and that. Yeah. It's just learning how to learn.
How to learn. Yeah. And what I love about your story is that it didn't just pop into being. You really had to figure it out. And, it's like this, it feels like this slow unraveling maybe of understanding your gifts. Were you testing various ways of like tuning in? Or how did you come to know, for example, that you were clairaudient? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I was in my development circle and somebody asked a question of the lady running the circle about clairaudience. And she said, well, not everybody hears it like we're talking now. Some people, they hear it in their head. And whatever it was she said, my brain just went kaboom. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm clairaudience. I get information that is me. And I'm like, oh, flipping heck. And so for me, when I got that knowledge of how clairaudience worked, it just fitted everything together. And it just gave me so much more depth, so much more information. I can't tell you how much it changed my reading, my work, everything. And so I would always say to anybody, even if you just want to be intuitive for your own purposes, go and figure out how you're wired. And like Amanda said, because we have a learning style, I'm starting to find that learning style correlates with your clairs. So if you're an auditory learner, you're probably clairaudient.
Oh, that's a great one.
I can't remember a face. My husband said I have Clark Kent syndrome. If someone puts on glasses, I have no idea who they are. If they change their hair color, I'm like, I don't know this person at all. And they're like, we've met like 10 times. But I recognize voices.
Yeah.
I'm like, voices, music, I pick up on those things quickly. Unlike visuals, I just don't as quickly. But like, I can hear it. And I'm like, oh, I know that actor because I know their voice, even though they're full face, costume, makeup, everything.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, that person changed her haircut. Oh, God, help me.
Yep.
Audio is my thing. So that's a cool tip.
Yeah. Do you feel clairaudient yet?
No.
You tapped into it
Not
yet?
yet.
Oh, you
No,
will.
Tracy's going to have to help me.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a tutor.
But it's interesting because another thing that I've noticed more recently is that the clairs that we've got can often be tied to what we're meant to be doing. So, for instance, an aromatherapist may well get clair olfactory, which is smelling, very strongly and frequently because they work with smells. Whereas a wine sommelier, they may be gifted more with clairgustance, which is taste, because that's something that they use a lot. And so it can show up in what you do. Like I do get smells and taste, but not very frequently, because unless I'm doing a mediumship reading, it's not really germane to what I'm doing. Whereas somebody who is a sound healer, they might get lots of songs, lots of music and things like that, because that's the way their brain works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, which is actually a really beautiful segue to talking about signs, because as you're talking about taste and smell, I'm thinking to myself, well, how do you use that? How do you use that in a psychic way? Is it that you hear something and it's a sign, or you smell something and it's a sign to move forward to it? What are some ways in which people could use those very kind of niche feeling or seeming psychic abilities?
That's a good question. Really good question. So for instance, let's say that you were doing a Reiki session and you were getting a smell. It might be that they need that oil. So, I'm getting rosemary oil. Okay, you need to go and get rosemary oil because it does this, this, and this. Or it might be that you're smelling lemons and you say to someone, I think you need more citrus in your diet because it's got this, this, and this. I mean, obviously, it could be a loved one coming through with a message as well, because you might get their perfume or their tobacco or their hand smell of engine oils, because they were always up to their elbows in car engines and stuff. So it depends on what context you're using it in. But I encourage my guys to start with the really little things, like instead of just opening the cupboards at lunchtime and going, oh, what shall I have? Ask your body what it wants, and you might suddenly smell lemons, and you know that you need to bring lemon into your food for the day. Or you might smell basil and you think, oh yeah, I'm going to have pesto because it's got something in. A bit like pregnant women crave like all the crazy stuff. Our body
Right.
does know what it wants, and it's not life-changing stuff, it's not going to save the world. But the more we live in alignment with our body and give it what it needs rather than what's quick, what's easy, what goes for the emotional need rather than the actual dietary need. So we can use it for little things like that. The same with taste. Again, depending on what you're doing, if you're being given the taste of something, it might be that you need it or the person that you're working with needs it, or it could be in a different frame of reference. So for instance, if you said to me cut grass and creosote, which is something that in the UK we paint our fences with, or we did back in the day, that would take me straight back to my childhood. And I can see my dad mowing the lawn and I can smell that creosote, and it's summer and there's blue skies and I can smell that cut grass on the creosote. I'm straight back to being 6 years old. Okay. And if you gave that to somebody, that might signpost where they need to go. Like, oh, do you know what? Actually, I think I need to be doing gardening for a living.
Love that.
Yeah.
And the same with a piece of music. I get a particular song from my dad who's passed, and that's normally a heads up that I need to ring my stepmother. But sadly, my stepmother now has dementia and he doesn't bring me that song anymore because she just doesn't speak on the phone. It's text or not at all. So he would communicate with music because he loved his music. But it could be the words of a song that are guiding you. So I don't know, let's say you're trying to decide where to go on holiday and you're looking for something a bit different. If you keep hearing Sinatra singing New York, New York, maybe you need to be booking a trip to New York.
That's right.
There's nearly always the words to a song or an actual song title that can give you the answers to whatever your questions are.
Yeah, I've heard that before, that if you get a song stuck in your head, it could be a sign from someone or a guide just trying to give you a little encouragement or send you in a direction. And it's funny for me because I always get the Lion King Circle of Life song in my head. I've yet to figure out what that's about.
Okay. Have you read all the lyrics to that song?
I haven't read the full lyrics, but it's just that first verse, like the day we come onto the planet to the day we go back to the sun. There's more to see than can ever be seen, more to do than could ever be done.
Pretty.
Yeah, it's nice. It's very poetic.
You should write down notes about when this comes into your head and what you're doing and what's around you, and maybe you'll find a pattern.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And that's very true because I'm qualified in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And we talk about the fact that we have 60,000 thoughts a day and we're oblivious to most of them. So what people quite often do is they're maybe going for a walk, and whilst they're walking, they're like, I wonder if I should go and look for another job. I hate my boss and da 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 da. And then they're thinking about dinner, and then they're thinking about whether they should go to this party or not, and whatever else they're thinking about. So our guides in the universe are bringing us signs, which we most often miss completely. And if we do see them, we haven't got a clue which question that is answering because we've just asked 10 questions in the first minute of the walk. Okay. So by writing down what it is we want guidance on and just work on one question at a time, you can actually dictate to your guides what sign you want. And it can be as weird and wonderful as you want. So a little while ago, I asked a question and I was out for a walk by the beautiful seaside, and it was a blue sky and with very, very few clouds. I said, just give me a love heart if this is a yes. And I literally looked up from the pavement and the clouds had done that. And I'm like, okay. It was
beautiful heart shape.
Yeah. And it was literally instant. And it's not often that quick, to be fair. So if I wanted to say, right, show me elephants, you don't get many of those in home bake. And in the next 24 hours, I might see it on the TV, or I might hear Dumbo singing the song from the Disney Dumbo film or whatever it is. It's not necessarily going to be a physical elephant manifested on my driveway. And that is the universe or your guides going, right, here's your answer. And then I can move on to the next question and get the guidance for the next question rather than just giving them all the questions in one go.
I do appreciate how specific the universe is sometimes and how clear.
Yeah.
I asked the universe for something and I was not super clear about it. And I said I needed some work opportunities. And I had, I think, 5 people from my past, like past, message me and say, "Oh, we have this work opportunity." I should have said, "I need a job that pays me money into my bank account and not just a phone call as a hypothetical work opportunity."
Yeah. So note to self, be very specific on your question, not vague.
I'm interrupting this episode to share some low-lift ways to help us reach more people. Because we're so new, we really rely on our listeners to help spread the word. So if you're enjoying this episode, here are a few simple things you can do while you continue listening that we would appreciate so much. First is to subscribe or follow this podcast on whatever streaming platform you happen to be listening to right now. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please consider giving us a 5-star rating, as that really pushes us in the algorithm. And if you're on YouTube, maybe leave us a positive comment like, "I'm enjoying this," or something quick and easy that feels good to you. And lastly, talk about us. Share us with a friend. I recently saw an Instagram post where someone said, "I know that if I ask my girls to share my work, they will." And I was like, that's it. So we're asking our girls, if you like it here, please help us build momentum. We're so grateful to have you. I'll let you get back to the episode. So, and actually, we haven't even talked too directly about the helper energies that exist in the universe, right? And so what we like to ask our guests is, how do you ensure that the energies you're tapping into are benevolent? How can you tell like the difference between a sign and an omen?
Okay. So I kind of put signs under the synchronicity banner. So you might be thinking about changing jobs, and you might be thinking about becoming a physio. And then the next thing you know, the world and his wife that you get talking to are a physio, or they're married to a physio, or they used to be a physio, or they're in physio training. And you're like, wow, never met a physio before. And I'm just like spoken to 10 this week, you know? So I tend to find that the universe will kind of give you lots of signs to make you sit up and take notice. Omens. I think omens for me are normally when I'm being guided to not do something. You know, like you're trying to go to a party and I don't know, the bus gets cancelled, or you can't get a taxi, or somebody rings you up and needs something, and it's like, oh, if I do that, I can't get at the party. And it's like the universe sends you lots of hints going, don't go. So for me, it's like the doors close in your face when it's an omen. And when it's meant to be, the universe will open the doors, bring you the right people, and everything flows. So it feels easier to move ahead with stuff that's right. And it's harder to move ahead with the stuff if I'm trying to go in the wrong direction and trying to force it into happening.
That makes a lot of sense. And I imagine too, that feeling sensation that you talked about earlier. It's like maybe the omen is also that gut feeling of no.
I just did a 3-day challenge on learning to work with your intuition. And a big issue that the ladies were finding, because it was predominantly ladies that came, if you say to your other half, oh, I don't really like such and such, and it's like, oh, don't be silly, what have they done to you? And they'll dismiss you because you can't quantify why. And I used an example. When I was a child, we went to a store opening, and there was a famous DJ in the UK that everybody would have heard of in the UK. And my mum walked miles to go and see this guy open this store because she thought he was brilliant. And the second she wanted me to go and sit on his lap and have a picture and everything with him, which you probably wouldn't even do these days, I was just like, no. And recently, like in the last 5 years, his name is one of the names that came up with child abuse and stuff. So my soul was just like, no, definitely not. Whereas everyone else is dismissive and going, oh, don't be silly, don't show me up, you're making me look bad. So you end up doing things because people pressurize you into doing it. And then I had the same thing when I met Jimmy Savile. I just could not get away from him quick enough, even though other people are like, oh yeah, but he's famous, he's this, he's that. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to be in the same room as him. And that was, again, before it all came to the news that he had also been up to all sorts of no good. But it's very easy to talk yourself out of intuition when everyone else is poo-pooing it and going, oh, don't be silly, you're overreacting, you're too sensitive, or whatever it is. And so you go to that party that your soul is screaming to you to not go to. And then, I don't know, maybe it's nothing bad, but maybe everyone gets food poisoning and you're like, oh, if only I had not gone. It's not always the big stuff. That's the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. Yes, there are those times when something shouts at you to slow down and you do. And if you hadn't, you'd have been in an accident and everything else. But it's more often than not the little things. But life's painful enough. We don't need any extra pain. So I'd much rather take the easiest path by trusting my intuition rather than the crazy path because that's what everyone else thinks they should do.
Yeah, and you made such a good point when you said quantitative. I feel like we live in this culture just globally where everything has to be quantified, like measured and proven and data, and you've got to see it. And like everything in our culture is built on data. Yeah. And we've lost sort of that qualitative quality and trusting that has equal value. To your point, like if you have a feeling about something and someone there says, well, you don't have any proof, you don't have any data, you don't have any like frames of reference here, it's dismissed. It's easily dismissed. And I do wish and hope that one day we will live in more of a world where those feeling sensations are just trusted. Like, okay, maybe this isn't right for you, or maybe it feels right in somebody else's body, but it's not right in your body,
Yeah. And, back in the day when we were living on the plains and we were trying to avoid the saber-toothed tiger, we listened to it. If you felt that you'd got eyes on you, you trusted it and you acted on it. You didn't talk yourself out of it because you might not live to say the next day. So, it's something that we used to use without thinking about. It was just intrinsic in our life. And we've just bred it out of us, and everything has to be logical and quantified. And there's a place for that, but I think we need to have the balance between the logical and what feels right, because it's illogical who we fall in love with. Why not their brother or their sister? Why not their best friend? So we do stuff all the time that is totally based on energy and it feels right. And we don't question that.
I do wonder sometimes in like a very modern world, like that we're all living in, can't really escape it, how we're influenced, right? It's like, I feel like some of that internal choice making kind of gets suffocated with everything that's put out in the media, whether or social media or just the world around you or advertisements or anything else, that you're just like, oh, would I really bought that if it wasn't so pressured on me, and that, or made that decision or gone on that vacation or felt bad about myself because I saw that person do something and I couldn't do it. And I feel like sometimes having that detox is so important to get back to your basic instincts and being able to read yourself and do what is right for you, because there is a lot of noise in this world. And I think that a lot of people are lacking that ability to have that internal intuition and sense because it's just too loud. It's just when you have the opportunity, when everything is hitting you, or your responsibilities or work, or you're thinking about like the next thing, Tracy, you were saying, you're out on a walk and then this and this and this and this and this pops out and you might miss something. And I feel like the world is so much busier than our cave ancestors had, when they were able to just be like, well, this is the task at hand. Let me focus to my intuition and everything around me. But now it's like so loud. I'm always impressed with people who have psychic and other abilities, because you really have to tune into that inner voice or read those messages coming in when other people can't block that sound. Even though, as you said, Tracy, many of us, or everybody, has some psychic abilities, but it's just too loud to hear it.
Yeah. And I think as the modern world has got louder, because I grew up, we only had 4 TV channels, which I know sounds archaic now. In fact, when I was born, we only had 3 in the UK. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have mobile phones. And so life was a lot more quiet. There was a lot more space. Kids played and just used their imagination, but we're not encouraged to do that either. And actually, the imagination and the clairvoyance are literally a piece of paper away from each other. They're so close. And so actually we should encourage everybody to have a vivid imagination and to allow it to run wild and to daydream, because those actually help the intuition and the clairvoyance. But how many times do you hear people getting told off by their parents for daydreaming, and the teacher telling them to stop daydreaming? And it's just like, we're just not encouraged to use those. And it's really, it's a real shame.
I saw some interesting graphic recently that was children being dragged into the house back in the day. Hey, you got to get back inside. It's late. You got to go to sleep. And now the graphic was pulling your children outside. Go play, go play, versus come inside. You're done playing. And I just thought, that's so true.
Yeah.
It's so sad. I hate it.
It is.
And today, especially with AI and everything, we are getting pushed with even more data points, right? But what we're also seeing is this interesting sort of subtle backlash of when you're reading captions that you can tell are AI. Or if we started an Instagram account, right? And so naturally, I'm looking for accounts that are a little bit woo and wellness and spiritual. And I've seen a couple of accounts that have tricked me for a moment, but it's a person talking to you about some like health hack or something like that. And then you're like, wait a second, what just happened in the background? And it's totally AI. It's like somebody's hand is like flying onto their body or something. And that's like the very small tell that this is an AI person. But they're pitching it as this is a real person that you should be following. This is the next influencer. And I'm thinking to myself, as soon as I realized that this was not human, I've lost all desire to connect, because deep down, we are energetic creatures, and we do want to lead with this qualitative feeling space. And so it becomes really boring to just interact with robots.
Yeah,
you know?
aren't there enough gifted people in the world? Like, I'm pretty sure there's billions, and we don't need a fake one.
Right. All to say, I think it's a beautiful thing that you are in the business of helping people really access these intuitive gifts. And I am curious to know a little bit more about the NLP. Can you tell us a little bit about what that framework is?
Okay, so NLP was created in the 70s, and it's basically the language of the brain, okay, and how the brain interprets things. So if you were to say, oh, I have to go to the school gates and pick the kids up, that has totally different energy to I want to go to the school and pick the kids up. Because the brain, when we say have and should, it becomes a chore. So when we say, oh, I have to go to the gym, even though you've joined voluntarily and you want to be healthy and you want to look good, but we use the language that makes it, no, I've got to go to the gym. And so that actually creates the wrong energy in us.
Yeah.
And so the language that we use with ourselves and others is very key. And I actually use my NLP to help people to heal their health problems, because all health problems are rooted in the emotional subconscious, and it's just stored trauma, whether that's from the teacher who picked on you for stumbling when you were reading out loud in English, or the fact that you was always the last one picked for the team in sports, or whether that's a super critical parent, a narcissistic partner, anything else you can think of. All that trauma just builds up until it manifests in the body. And when we look at the chakra system, which is the energy points on the body, they govern the organs where they sit. So for instance, the throat chakra is here in the little dip, and it affects anything in that region, as well as your clairaudience. 80% of people who've got thyroid dysfunction are women, because women are not encouraged to speak out. So their throat chakra is imbalanced. So I know that if they come to me with a throat problem, it's the throat chakra that I need to work on. I know it's about self-expression, and I can help them using NLP find the root of that problem and then be able to clear it and reframe it, because I can't change what happened, but I can change how they feel about it. And then the health issue will go.
Wow. Okay, I have to interrupt. How does they have to be in presence with you, or
I can do it on Zoom. It doesn't have to be an in-person thing. Well, in lockdown, everything.
Maybe I'm getting personal now. I'm like, I want that.
Amanda's like, I would like to be your next client.
Let's go. Here's my money. Take it. Fix me. But I think a lot of people would like to know. So why not?
I'm just putting together a group program where I will work through things with people, and they will do a lot of the work themselves. And then once a month, we'll meet on Zoom and I'll guide them through the stuff that's harder to do on your own. But it's so easy to see where things come from when you know what you're looking for. So things like ADHD, anxiety. I mean, literally in lockdown, I was virtually only helping people with mental health problems because that's where everyone's focus was.
So it's a mixture of various forms of healing.
Yeah, there's Louise Hay, who started Hay House Publishing and Hay House Radio. And back in the 70s, she had vaginal cancer and a couple of other things going on. And she worked on herself and healed all of those. And she started a program to help people heal themselves. Since then, you've got Deb Shapiro, who wrote Your Body Speaks Your Mind, which literally whatever's going on in your physical body is representative of what's going on emotionally and mentally. And then you had Yvette Rose, who's got a huge book called Metaphysical Anatomy, and she's very current now. Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing a lot of healing work as well. And so there's been a big shift since lockdown for alternative health and ways to heal without it coming back, because we all know people who've had cancer and, you know, they have the chemo and the radio, and then a few years later it can come back again. So by changing what's going on in the mental state once and for all, it shouldn't come back because the belief that's driving it isn't there anymore.
I heard somebody say this recently where they were like, well, you can't just change the mind. You also have to change the feeling space, but they're connected, right? Yeah. It's like the way that you speak is a reflection of what your feelings are, right? Yeah. I should go to the gym versus like, I really want to go exercise. Yeah. And so I'm curious, do most people come to you with physiological ailments, or I imagine you have all sorts of different clients looking for all sorts of different things, but what is kind of one of the through lines that people come to you for?
Well, I see it as pretty much all healing, because if you've had a nasty breakup and you're coming to me for a reading to tell you that there's some good stuff coming, or you've lost somebody that you love and you want me to do mediumship and connect with them, that's all bringing healing. Okay. Yeah. And so I just put it under the umbrella of healing, but is it emotional healing for something that's temporary, or is it deeper, which is when the NLP and the coaching comes in? And sometimes it's more spiritual, because it could be a past life issue. It could be a soul contract that they're dealing with in this life. So it kind of depends on what's actually going on as to what I would do to help them. And sometimes they'll come for a reading and they'll end up doing something else with me because of what's come up in the reading. And other times it's the reverse. They've come to me for the health work, and then they want to do a reading and look at where things are going and what they can do to make change.
That's amazing. Do you have any fun stories where you've seen some really interesting success in your clients, or some interesting arcs?
Yeah, I had a client who came to me because they were having problems with relationships across the board. They just kept feeling that people would leave their life, and it just upset them so much, whether it was the colleague that was moving on or a friend moving out the area, whatever it might be. And when we were working, I took them back using NLP to when they were 4 years old, and they didn't actually remember it consciously. But when they were 4, their mother had taken them to nursery. And it was standard practice in the UK back then, and they probably might even still do it. When the kid's busy, mum, run. Okay. So there's this 4-year-old having a great time playing with the other kids, turns around, and their primary caregiver, who has been there every minute of their life for the last 4 years, is suddenly not there. Massive abandonment issues. And mum came back, everything was okay. 4-year-old kids completely forgotten about this traumatic experience now, because they've got goldfish memories most of the time. And fast forward 40 odd years down the line, and that is causing them massive problems in their relationships, and it was giving them gout in their big toe.
Oh, wow. No.
And so by clearing that and getting them to acknowledge their 4-year-old self and everything that was going on, and update how that 4-year-old self felt about that situation, the gout went. And so did the abandonment issues.
Thank
Wow.
goodness.
But, you know, their parent didn't really do anything wrong. Everyone was being told to do the same thing. They thought they were doing
Totally.
the right thing. So this is not to, you know, trauma dump on parents and blame them because it's not their fault. And you know, any other kid might have been completely landed. I know when I went to nursery, my mum was the one crying because I was oblivious to the fact that she's waving us the window. Bye, mum. I see you later. You know, so everybody has a different experience, but that wounded them so deeply and made them feel so insecure that they were overly needy in any relationship, friendship or otherwise. And it again triggered them when that person left, even though they'd not had a row. But it triggered the 4-year-old self almost going, oh, yeah, there's another person leaving my life. Great. See ya.
Yep.
You know, and so that messed them up for like 4 decades.
And it is wild because I have 2 little kids, a 5-year-old and a year and a half. My husband and I always joke, they're going to go to therapy no matter what. Like we will do everything we can. Every child is so different. I've seen it firsthand now that experience, like you said, could really traumatize one kid and another kid could be totally like, no big deal. I don't, you know, I'm not thinking about it. So it's just wild, our human experience and what we come here to walk through and how sensitive our different, you know, bodies are and hearts. It's really just fascinating. I'm curious if you have, since, you know, we're coming down to the wire here and I love talking to you. Do you have a sign story in your life where like there has been a sign that really helped you move to a different direction?
Yeah. So when I was saying earlier on about in the recession in 2008, my financial services business just died because nobody wanted a mortgage. And I'd been for lunch with friends and they said, why don't you get on the telephone lines and get a job and do your tarot readings? And I didn't really believe in myself then. I didn't really think I was good enough. Anyway, they said to me, next month when we meet, we bet you've done nothing with this and you'll still be procrastinating. I went, yeah, okay. And that to me is enough to make me be proactive, just like dare me or tell me I won't do something and I will. And literally I got home, there was post on the doormat, 1 letter, and it was from one of the telephone lines. I had never rung them. I had never joined their websites. There is no reason for me to get that junk mail at all. So it was random, but it wasn't. And I went, okay, well, that's a sign. So I ripped open the letter and I rang them and asked if they needed anybody. And I got an interview and I got the job. And here we are. So that to me was just a slap round the face with a wet fish. I could not have avoided that one at all because it was just so in my face. And it was like, okay.
And you immediately rang your friends who were on a mimosa high and told them what was what.
Yeah. And I went, oh my God, you're never going to believe what's just happened. And it was like, wow.
That's fantastic. So psychics, you talked about in the beginning of our conversation, how when you were young, you were like, oh, I just want to see everything. I want to see the future. I want to, you know, just know everything. Now that you have been practicing the skill and with everything going on in the world, I am curious, do you have a sense of how things are going to play out globally? Or like, how do you respond? Because there's so much happening. Like, how are you using your gifts to sort of navigate, maybe is a better question.
Okay. It's quite overwhelming, everything that's going on in the world at the moment. There is so much wrong with it. And I really feel that we have to have this meltdown. And the same as lockdown needed to happen to change what people wanted, because in lockdown, people really loved having loads of spare time, being able to hang out in the garden, and they're getting paid for it because everyone's furloughed. And I went, oh, this is really quite nice. I've got so much spare time. And then we went back to work and normality, in inverted commas, and everyone was like, oh my God, this is hard. So I think between the lockdown thing and what's going on now, I think that the world is going like 100 miles an hour towards a massive meltdown that needs to happen because society is so toxic for us. I mean, like your mums. So you know what it's like. You need 2 incomes to survive, but it means you can't be the full-time mum that you really want to be, and you've got to pay someone else to bring your kids up if you don't have your mum on tap to do it for you. Okay. And that's just that's not what families are about. We work so many hours, we're trying to cram so much in, and that is driving the ADHD pandemic because everyone's
Mhm.
just overwhelmed. Something has to give. So I just feel like we're on a collision course with a necessary meltdown.
I love it. Burn it down.
Burn it down. What is the vision that you're holding for what comes after? What would be like a sweet spot where we could land?
I feel like there needs to be more balance. The countries are being run by the megalomaniacs, and the people like you and I at the grassroots, we're not we don't benefit from what's going on. And the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And so I feel like there needs to be a reinvention where the whole world is a fairer place to be. There'll always be some inequality, but it feels like the man on the street like you and I is just rising up and going, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So it's a completely different kind of civil war. It's like man versus the machine.
Oh, I love it. I really do love it. I'm like, this is not working. Please, world, fix it. Universe, we could do better. I think my question is going to be really light. What's your favorite part of being able to tap into this gift that you have?
I love being able to help people, but for my own purposes, I love the fact that I understand the bigger picture. Because honestly, if I truly thought you were born, you have a really difficult life with loads of horrible things happening, and then you die, I just feel like shoot me now. Whereas knowing that this is about soul growth, this is about community and helping other people, because you're helping each other with your soul contracts, even if you don't know it. So I think knowing that there's a much bigger picture and a deeper purpose to everything that happens, I feel like I've got the edge, because that's a far more positive way to come at the world than thinking that literally you're born, you suffer, you die.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you have a favorite book you could offer listeners who are curious to get into this kind of content? Like, was there a book that changed the trajectory of your life
God,
that you want to offer?
For me, 1996, the Celestine Prophecies. Oh my God, it was like someone just exploded the world as I knew it. And apparently he wrote that, and they said, no one's going to buy this if you put it out as nonfiction. So he made it fiction.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. But I tried to read it again recently, because I love to reread a book and bring this updated version of me to the book. And I just couldn't. It was like trying to read 1 and 1 is 2 or Janet and John when you've been reading something really, really hard. And it was just like, I can't read it. I'm gutted, because I would have loved to have read it again. That really put me on my path.
Yeah, it felt like an entry level text now. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, this has been, I mean, truly fantastic. Thank you so much for feeling that this was a yes for you to come onto the podcast. I have to share that I did pull a card right before we jumped on, and I got the sun, so that was a lovely little sign as well. But while you're here, tell our listeners where they can find you, your website, socials, anything you want to share.
Okay, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook predominantly, and it's Tracy Fance, Soul Healer. You'll also find my website, which is tracyfance.com. But if you can't find those, just Google me and I will come up. And I'd love to hear from people. I'd love to hear that they've enjoyed the show and that I was able to give them some aha moments. That would be great.
We'll include all of that information in our show notes too, so we'll make it easy to find. Thank you again, Tracy. I hope you have a wonderful night, as I know it's evening for you.
It is, yes.
Enjoy those oysters. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
I wanted to share a couple of offerings that Tracy has for you, which we'll include in the show notes. The first is a free guide on why our health problems are deeper than our doctors can see, called What Your Body is Actually Trying to Tell You. She also has a membership program called The Healing Pathway, which is for women who want to work on understanding the roots behind their physical and emotional symptoms. She draws on NLP, Akashic Records, inner child work, somatic awareness, and so much more. And there's a monthly live healing circle included, so you'd have access to that as well. So I'll drop those links in the show notes for you. As always, thank you so much for making it to the end of the show. I mentioned this already mid-episode, but it would mean a lot for you to share it and like it and pump us up in the algorithm. So thanks again. Much love. See you next time. You are supported, dear listener. It may not always feel that way, but there will be signs.